everyone, thank you so much for watching today's video. I know there are times YouTubers will have cups or props and actually not have any coffee or tea in there, but just reference that they like tea or coffee. This is actually full, as you can see. I'm going to get little lipstick marks on the side so you know I'm actually drinking out of it as well. I'm really excited to be doing the coffee book tag today because I think it's a great way to take part in the BookTube community. The first question involves black coffee. What is a hard to get into series that has hardcore fans? I first picked up the Lord of the Rings series when I was way too young to really appreciate it. I think I was in 5th or 6th grade when I first picked up The Hobbit and wanted to embark on this magical, mystical quest with this fantastical world. It was difficult to read at that age, and yet years later as an adult, it's still something that takes a little bit more for me to get into. That being said, I think the movie adaptations are brilliant, and I have nothing against the storyline. I think it's very well thought out, and it's one of the most original series ever published. I have nothing against the series, and I completely understand why there are so many people so taken with it. It's just not something that I naturally gravitate towards. Peppermint Mocha. Name a book or series that gets more popular during the Christmas season. This is a very easy tag. Let It Snow by John Green, Lauren Miracle, and Maureen Johnson becomes so much more popular during the winter months. During the Christmas season, everyone is picking up that book. It is a wonderful read, and I highly recommend it if you haven't read it yet. The first story in that is actually my favorite. I thought Lauren Miracle did a great job. Whenever 3 authors come together to produce a cohesive book, there's usually some disconnects along the way, whereas characters change or they're not written in quite the same manner. And I was very impressed with this book because all 3 authors were able to convey their own styles, yet maintain consistency throughout the book. I'm very impressed with that publication. The Hot Chocolate Tag. What is my favorite children's book? I really enjoyed Inkheart when I was a kid. I thought that book was so well written. I loved that it was about reading out loud and about books itself, and so that was a very clever way to get children involved with reading on Cornelia Funk's behalf. I loved that series. I also really enjoyed A Series of Unfortunate Events. I know it's not the most uplifting series, but it's really fun to read when you're a kid, especially because the characters all have different traits that you could relate to, or you felt like you were learning from them while you were engaged in this entertaining story. I thought that was a very well done series. Harry Potter is technically a children's book series, so I also have to mention that in this category. Harry Potter holds a special place in my heart. Double Espresso, a book that kept me on the edge of my seat from start to finish. This isn't necessarily where the tag is supposed to be going. I really love The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. That is a book where I was engaged from start to finish. From the first sentence to the last sentence, I was not putting that book down. I've read that book I think 5 or 6 times now. It's just spectacular. If you haven't read this book yet, stop watching this video and go buy it because it's a great read and you're guaranteed to tear up and become emotionally invested in the characters. In a completely different genre, I think The Girl on the Train was a really interesting read. While I wasn't necessarily on my seat from start to finish, by the 50-page mark I became really intrigued and was not going to go to bed until I finished that book. Another book that caught me off guard was My Life Next Door. I was not expecting that book to transform from a teenage romance into a moral dilemma. I think I stayed up until 2 a.m. finishing that book because I was not going to go to sleep without knowing that ending. Starbucks, a book I see everywhere. This is a very easy tag. Anything by John Green is currently on the New York Times bestseller list. About 3 weeks ago I had issues with my laptop and I needed to go to the Apple Store. While I was there, I was in this little plaza that had a Barnes & Noble. After my Genius Bar session, I needed to go into that Barnes & Noble. While I was in there, I saw a display that was dedicated to John Green books. I don't think I've actually ever seen Barnes & Noble dedicate a space to just one author. Usually it has to do with TV shows that are adaptations of books that are currently popular or new movie adaptations. I've never seen them actually dedicate a section to just one author, and I was really surprised by that. I've seen Jane Austen tributes and things like that during the Valentine's season, but I've never seen something dedicated quite in this way before. That Hipster Coffee Shop, an independent author shout out. I read Unenchanted by Chandra Han, I want to say 2 years ago. I really liked the fact that she took the Grimm's fairy tales and added a new spin to it. I've seen the show Grimm and a lot of adaptations from the Grimm's fairy tales, but Chandra Han was able to do something different that I hadn't come across before in prior literature or television. I was very impressed and intrigued by her take on everything. I actually ended up reading the other books in that series as well, and that's not something that I typically do because I prefer hard copy books, not ebooks, and so for me to actually choose an ebook over a hard copy book is saying something. The Perfect Blend, a book or book series that was bittersweet. I'm going to have to give this to Harry Potter because some of my favorite characters were killed along the way and I will never get over their literary deaths. I'm still very upset about Hedwig. And in the movie, they didn't really dive into Hedwig's death, leaving me even more upset. Green Tea, a book that is quietly beautiful. I absolutely adored Stargirl. I loved that book, and I cannot give it enough praise. It was very simple, it was very short, and yet I loved the characters. There was a lot of depth to them. The themes are also really important, and Spinelli goes about addressing them in a very nice manner. He doesn't bash the reader over the head with the morals of the story, yet everything comes across clearly. I would give that book more than 5 stars if I could. I highly recommend it to everybody and everyone. I love Stargirl because she doesn't care what anyone thinks of her. She just gets up and dances. She has a ukulele that she plays at lunch. She's just a very sweet character that I can't help but root for. I just absolutely adored her, and I wanted her to be happy in the end. Chai Tea, a book or book series that makes me dream of faraway places. I am going to have to say Anna and the French Kiss. Anna goes to school in France and wanders the streets of Paris, going to the movies, and so that makes me want to go to Paris in the worst way. I've never been to France, but I would love to go there someday. The last tag is Earl Grey, naming my favorite classic. At this particular point in time, I have taken quite a few English literature classes. It's really hard to name just one classic novel. I love Alice in Wonderland. I think that's one of the finest children's books ever written, even though it's not necessarily just for children. That's one of my favorites. I also love Anything and Everything by Jane Austen. Pride and Prejudice and the characterizations that she created are phenomenal, and they've lasted the test of literary time for a reason. I love English literature, so it's hard to name just a couple. My go-to tea is actually Earl Grey, so this is indicative of my go-to genre of sorts. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I really hope you liked my coffee book tag. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I'm going to be including my Goodreads profile link down below so you can follow my reading adventures online. As always, have a great reading day.